Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's time for the Brown Sports Bag. From the heart of the Barrens, a weekly local sports machine. Alongside John Butler, here's your host, James Brown.
Well, we are here this week. We're having a show. Everything is a call-in. John's not in the studio. He'll be joining the show later. And so we're doing some experimentation with talking to people through the phone lines, and we're joined right out of the gate by Brandon Combs, Warren East boys basketball coach. And until this season, he had the distinction of being the last coach to lead the Cumberland County Panthers to the 4th Region Tournament. But one of his former players took that from him. Thanks for joining the show, Brandon.
Yeah. Thanks, James. Thanks for having me in. That was a very cool moment for Curtis, and one of his assistant coaches, Daniel Lee, played for us as well on that team. So it was neat to get to watch those guys play and coach there in the tournament.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about basketball season. I mean, you're a basketball coach, but you're kind of a well-rounded individual in many other ways. So it gives us an opportunity to talk about things that are not specifically sports related on this show like this. So let's start with that. When you was that 2009 when you were the head coach at Cumberland County?
Yes. Uh-huh.
And then you guys made it to the 4th Region Tournament. Now, didn't you guys win a game at the tournament that year as well?
We won our district. We beat Clinton by 2 in the first round of the district. We beat Russell in the final, and we drew Bowling Green, which was a runner-up in the 14th that year, and Bowling Green beat us in triple overtime.
Yeah,
in the first round of the tournament.
Yeah, it's one of those. A few weeks ago, before the 4th Region Tournament started, John Butler made the comment that one of the things that has to happen in order to beat Bowling Green or Warren Central these days is you got to make the shot when the most important shot. A lot of times we see that teams have an opportunity to knock them off, and they either don't make that shot, the winning shot. They don't get that rebound, the one that would decide the game. And you're not the only coach who's been a victim of that circumstance over the years.
Definitely not, and I often, I tell other coaches and guys in the media and people around, it's obvious. Sometimes it's not the first shot that beats you against Bowling Green and Central. It's the second or third. They're just so athletic, and at times they seem to play volleyball with the thing there on the backboard. And both teams are so well coached as well, so it's a tough combination to have to go against.
Yeah. And this year proved to be no different. I thought one of the things at the boys' 4th Region Tournament was how impressive Bowling Green and Warren Central were in those first games, because that's usually the one that looks like a team has an opportunity to steal one from them.
It is, and I've had the opportunity to work for some great coaches, Tim McMurtry, Tim Riley, and B.G. Sherrill, and they've always said that first game in the region tournament is a tough one. Because, you've got all the pressure in the world on you right there, especially if you're coming out of that district a winner.
Yeah. And
you come out of the 14th a winner, you're thinking, hey, all the pressure's on us. The entire region's looking at us. We need to perform. And you go back and look, at some point, now this is the majority of the time. I won't say every time. But that region winner usually has one difficult game at some point in the region tournament.
Yeah. And this year, it actually turned out to be those 2 second-round games. I thought Logan County did well against Bowling Green, and Clinton County. Man, they were really scrappy in that game and had some opportunities. Found kind of a local hero in, I think his name was Blake Melton. I mean, he's a guy that when he comes off the bench, you think he plays basketball, but, man, he was sharp. And he got called into that game because of an injury and some foul trouble, and he's just a sophomore. So, I mean, one of those schools we might see again next year is Clinton County. They actually had a pretty young team.
And this is just kind of looking ahead and without putting much thought into it. Clinton's going to be one of those teams outside the 14th that you feel like will be there at the region tournament. Barron's going to have another solid team. Folks like that. Logan County still has Woodard. Franklin's still going to be solid, and of course our district's going to be really good again.
Yeah.
With everybody returning, especially you look at a team like us return the bulk of our scoring. South returns a ton. Greenwood returns everybody but Carroll, and then, of course, Bowling Green and Central. They're Bowling Green and Central. What else can you say?
Right. Yeah, you don't even know what they have sometimes because they're so loaded at the top end that you don't get to see a lot of their younger players. And then you think, well, this will be the year they drop off, and they show up, and you're like, oh, that was their JV team last year. We missed that. But I'm sure you have some insight in that kind of stuff because you're in the district with them right now.
Yeah, and our freshmen this year, we lost in the freshman district final to Warren Central. Had a great freshman campaign, and that bunch plays really, really well together. And that bunch played all season. We didn't play Isaiah Andrews at all with those kids this year. You know, we wanted those kids to develop some on their own without him this year, and Isaiah ended up starting varsity for us as a freshman and scoring over 200 points this season. So they did an excellent job without him, and we feel like we developed some more kids. And, you know, it's no secret we're going to be exceptionally young again next year in regards to what class we're in, but a lot of those kids are going to come back with a year's worth of experience and 14th district experience, which is going to be key.
Well, let's change gears a little bit on the basketball talk because I want to talk about a player who used to be in the 14th district when he was in the 8th grade, Zion Harmon. Reports are he's going to do his revelation on where he wants to go to college. There's some speculation of him changing his classification, so he'd be in the class of 2020, right, instead of 21. And WKU, the Hilltoppers, are one of the squads at the top of his list. And some people, I think, find that surprising, but I really don't. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's all about, you know, a kid of his caliber. We played against those guys this year. And
he's at Marshall County.
Yeah, he was the best player, you know, obviously we faced all season. And the game came really easy to him. What impressed me the most about him is he's not a kid that's going to come out and try to take 20, 25 shots a game. He got his teammates involved, and it was a competitive game for a half at least. The first half was really competitive, and he moved the ball exceptionally well. There was a couple of times where he shot the ball from 23, 24 feet and made it. You know, what more can you ask? We had a hand in his face. But, you know, it would be definitely, I think it'd be a big score for the Hilltoppers, considering, you know, the blue blood programs that's made his final list, and for them to be in there says a lot in itself.
Well, and to me, one of the things about him is that he could go to Kansas or Kentucky or that kind of thing, but if he wants to play right away, he is absolutely a need for the Hilltoppers, and so he's a guy they could just, I mean, he could all but guarantee he's just going to walk in and start, you know, as long as it's nothing crazy going on between now and then. And sometimes you never know what happens in college basketball, but he looks like the kind of player they really need. Yeah,
and, you know, a lot of these so-called quote-unquote experts knock his size.
Yeah.
But what that kid has is he won a state championship as an 8th grader.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he has such a knack and will to win that kind of makes up for that lack of size. Now, you know, at that next level, what you're going to see is when he's put in some pick and roll situations, they're going to trap him because, you know, they're going to have a 6'3", 6'4" guy guarding him on the ball.
Yeah.
And then they're going to hedge a pick and roll screen with a guy who's 6'6", 6'7", maybe 6'8". So his decision making and his passing, you know, which he's really good at, will be at a premium at that next level.
Well, and I tell you the thing about him too also, and this is kind of what you were talking about when you guys played him, is how easy the game comes to him. I mean, some people are just natural at what they do, and he's just a natural basketball player. He doesn't have to think about it a whole lot. He just kind of fits into however it's going. And your point about him not pressing so much is, I think, pretty important too, because maybe when he was younger, he may have thought of himself as a scoring point guard. But I think as he's gone along, he's developed into a guy that looks at himself as like a pure point guard who can score.
Most definitely, and you know, at that level, he's obviously probably going to have to play point.
Yeah,
and he's going to be able to distribute the basketball. He's obviously able to shoot the basketball from 22, 23 feet when people go under screens on him. And you know, the big question mark will be how can he defend as being a smaller guy? You know, you know, who do they stick him on defensively? Because, you know, primarily at that level, it's man-to-man defense. And it's kind of anxious to see. It'll be interesting tomorrow. There'll be a lot of folks tuned in to social media to kind of see where he commits to.
Yeah, I think that he's going to do that like at 2:00 tomorrow, I think is what it's going to be. And look, I'm here to tell you, I've actually thought this for a number of months that he will both pick WKU and will reclassify, because I think he's always looked at what his final ambition is to get to college and to play. And I don't know, a lot of people talk about the next level after that, but he might, because of the size, that may be a deterrent at the professional level, but I don't think so necessarily at the college level.
No, and the public knows the situation we're in now, just as a society and what we're going through now.
Right.
And especially education-wise, you talk to 50% of the people, they don't know that we'll go back to school in the spring, and then you talk to another 50%, and they think we will.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's a lot of questions out there to be answered regarding the whole reclassification process, and it'll be interesting to see, and definitely be a lot of good situations out there to talk about.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's change gears again. Before we came on the air, we were talking about some of the things we were going to discuss, and you and I both like to read, and I think we both like Southern fiction and nonfiction quite a bit. And you said you're reading a good book right now. What is that?
It's actually an Eastern Kentucky piece. It's Night Comes to the Cumberlands by Harry Caudell. He published it in, I believe it was 1962, 1963. My wife got this for me last year at Christmas. It's the first edition.
Yeah.
And it talks about how the coal industry really took over, and how the folks that were making all the money on that wasn't necessarily putting that back into East Kentucky. And the author, Harry Caudell, was from Whitesburg. He was well known, and interesting book. I'm about halfway through it, and definitely an interesting take.
Yeah. Over the weekend, we went and cleaned out a storage unit that we had stacked up for about 3 years and got everything out of it. One of the things in there was my whole big old book collection. I just hadn't have anywhere to put it over the last 3 years because we've been moving stuff around, kids moving out the house, trying to rearrange furniture, and that kind of thing. And one of the books that's in there that's one of my favorites is actually Messiah for the Masses, and it's about Huey P. Long there in Louisiana in the 30s.
Yeah.
And his response and relationship with the Great Depression. And it's a book about, populism, because that's basically what Huey P. Long and his brother, I think it was Frank, who was later governor of Louisiana, they were populist at heart. They would pull up trailers at these events, and then they would stand on the back and, proselytize about their positions. And many of them were anti-corporate and that kind of thing, except they were getting plenty of money, because on the behind the doors they were peddling out their political influence.
Oh, sure.
And it's that relationship, I've always found, that relationship that we see a lot of times in the national media between, say, the Delta. It's the Mississippi Delta, but that area also plays in Louisiana as well, as far as the economics of it, and Appalachia there, especially in Eastern Kentucky.
Well, you're from the southern part of the state, but a buddy of mine, childhood best friend, Josh Matney, we've always wanted to drive through the Delta at some point.
Yeah.
And I would love to drive down through there and hit some of those blues music places up, and drive through the crossroads there in some different spots, and be an interesting trip.
Yeah, they don't have many golf courses for you guys, but you could probably find a good cotton field to swat a golf ball around.
Well, one thing about it, there wouldn't be many hills to fool with or contend with.
No, you'd have to worry about the sinking balls in the mud and whatnot more than the hills. But when you look at getting a book that you want to read, is there a particular author you like to look at?
Not in particular. I'm a title guy. If it stands out to me pretty quick. Ordered a book last night about Emmett Till. New author came out with that. I'm going to check that out. Jerry Mitchell's come out with a good book too. That's a Mississippi writer.
Yeah,
that's some of these unsolved kind of murder cases that he's helped solve, and want to get my hands on that too at some point this summer.
Yeah, Jerry Mitchell, I don't know how many people outside of the state of Mississippi know who Jerry Mitchell is, but he's a former writer for the Clarion Ledger there. Actually, probably wrote for the Jackson Daily paper before it merged. But he has been around a long time, and what happened was he became very interested in the unsolved murders of civil rights activists from the 60s in Mississippi, and really broke open a lot of those cases that were presented in the mid-'90s, early 2000s, where they prosecuted former Ku Klux Klan members and that kind of stuff. I think he missed out on winning that Pulitzer Prize. I think he got beat out on that, unfortunately. But yeah, he reshaped the prosecutorial ways of that kind of thing in Mississippi with his writing.
Wasn't he instrumental in kind of the Byron D. LeBeckwith and Medgar Evers?
Absolutely, yeah.
I thought he was.
Yeah, he wrote about that, and those all started out. I think they've all been compiled in the books now, or at least some of those things have. But yeah, they all started out as investigative reporting in the newspaper there, which is, one of those things that we forget the importance of your local newspaper and local media in general, the work that it does to inform you about things that are going on and even open the eyes up for people in other ways. So what's your favorite book you think you've ever read?
Probably that I've ever read.
Yeah.
It would probably be glancing through the Kentucky High School Basketball Encyclopedia.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know if you've seen that one, though, but that's the one that was compiled probably 10 years ago, and there's been an update, I think, 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
But it breaks down, all the schools before consolidation, and obviously I think it's neat because I was born and raised in high school, and, going back and seeing when they had a high school, who the coach was, who was the coach in 55, 56.
Yeah.
What was their record, and those type things. I really enjoy looking at that, and it goes all the way across the state. And once I got to looking at it, I'm like, man, it took me a week to get through that thing. And I would catch myself, studying that thing 3 or 4 hours, and I'd look at my watch and I'd be like, holy crap, it's 1:30 in the morning.
Yeah. I have seen that, but I do not have a copy of it. I had been sent a copy whenever I was at the Daily Times to review it, a decade ago or whatever, and I looked through it and all, but it was, at that time I was not in doing the sports, so I handed it off to the sports editor. I said, hey, this might be interesting to you because I had, public files to look at or something. But, so he latched on to it, and he thought it was pretty good, and I don't know if he ran off with it or if it's still sitting at the Daily Times. But yeah, it was a pretty impressive piece of work. I remember that because out of that is where I learned about some of the Horse Cave basketball teams, I think from the 40s, and I was like, it's pretty impressive. You just you don't know how good some of these schools were, pre-consolidation and that kind of stuff.
I mean, especially I didn't have any idea when I worked at Cumberland County. Somebody told me, but Maribone actually made the state tournament. Yeah,
was that in the 30s, 32,
something
like that?
Yeah, and I got to looking in that book once I got my hands on it, and boom, there it was. I mean, those guys played in the actual state tournament, high school KHSAA state tournament.
Where do you think they played pickup basketball down by the creek?
Well, it's the only place to play there, as you know, James. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's a good place to learn.
Yeah, if you could find some level ground there, and definitely, and stay away from the creek. That way, if you missed a shot short or long, it didn't bounce in the creek. So.
Yeah, those are always the worst things when you're on those outdoor courts and you've got, you missed that shot and whatever, and somebody's got to go get the ball down the hill and that kind of stuff, and it's all like, you missed it, you go get it.
Yeah, you definitely didn't want to be the guy that took the shot and missed it.
That's right. You got more exercise than you meant to get that day.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Brandon, I want to thank you for joining us and jumping on here with us and talking about basketball and other stuff.
Who do you have coming on next?
Well, I got Matt Gardner coming up, assistant coach.
Oh, my.
Undefeated head coach, Matt Gardner.
Well, then this is like, you and I talking is the JV game. You're fixing to get to the varsity game next.
Yeah. I got some barbecue questions lined up for him.
Oh, my, I've had several of Matt Gardner's meals. He's an excellent chef. Obviously an excellent teacher. I saw where he won Teacher of the Year at the high school. I mean, the guy is just proficient at everything, James. So hopefully I have provided some filler material here for 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah, we got you at the 20-minute mark. You've done an excellent job.
Hey, no problem. Glad I could help. I appreciate you having me on, and everybody out there, stay safe.
All right, thanks, Coach. That was Coach Brandon Combs. He's the head coach for Warren East High School. Boys basketball, he jumped on here to join us. We're doing these calls remotely because we're trying to maintain the practices related to COVID-19, but we don't want to skip doing the show. We want to keep you guys entertained if we can do that, informed if we can do that. And so that's what we're going to do here. Coming up here shortly will be Matt Gardner, and then a little later in the show, my regular co-host John Butler will be joining us. So this is the Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Well, I want to take a minute before Matt Gardner gets on here to talk a little bit about the people who sponsor this show, this station, and actually the other stations with Commonwealth Broadcasting, because I know a lot of businesses are dealing with some unforeseen circumstances, of course, and they're trying to figure this out on the fly. And one of the things that I think is great is that these businesses that do invest with us believe that we can provide a message for them, and that we will reach customers, the ones that they have and the new ones that they would like to have. And I think that's pretty important. It's important to us, and we've been doing some things above and beyond around here to try to say thank you to our advertisers, to our customers is what they are. They're our customers. And so we've been doing that, and we can't do any of the stuff that we do here without them. And, you know, John and I get to talk about sports, and we kind of, you know, Free Will and McDonald's of Glasgow is a primary sponsor of this show. We run some other advertising that comes to us in other ways for other purposes, but they run during this show as well. And thank you to them for supporting the show. You know, it's a real honor to be able to go out and cover high school sports and have the opportunity to talk about high school sports and be able to meet the folks who are involved with this, the coaches and the players. They're always a whole lot of fun. But really, I couldn't do any of that without the people who are behind the scenes that we don't really talk about in a lot of ways. You know, we do when the tournaments are on, and we say thank you there during those times, or when Brian Webb and I are doing the U.S. Army ESPN game night that travels around in the trailer at high school football games. And I think we're on board to be back again next year. We're the only show like that around. So, I mean, again, I want to thank those people who provide us these opportunities to talk to you and to talk about their children and their businesses. And, you know, it's a wonderful thing in this world. So we're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back – oh, wait, no, we're not going to take a quick break. We're going to hit Matt Gardner. Hey, Matt, how's it going?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing well. You know, I had Combs on here. He said he was the JV and you're the varsity. What do you think about that?
I don't know about that. That's tough following a legend like Coach Combs. Kind of a jack of all trades.
He is indeed, but hey, he's not alone. You are a jack of all trades yourself there, Matt. I mean, you are undefeated as a high school basketball coach, which is pretty good. I thought it was pretty funny when we had the little interview with Warren getting his 200th win, and he made the comment that it may have been 199 because you were 1-0.
Yeah, I think that was when Evan was born.
Yeah.
He was still at the hospital and turned the reins over to me for one night. So I was fortunate enough to get the W that night. And I told him he could go ahead and count that towards 200.
That was mighty nice of you. Yeah, I remember being at that game and talking to you about it and asking you, you know, if you would put in any of your own little wrinkles and that kind of stuff. Do you remember anything like that?
You know, not really. It was, you know, we had a really talented team that year with, I think Jacoby had a really good game. We had him and Dalton Bush and Barrett Billingsley and Charlie McCoy that day, and just trying to figure out probably how to contain Mason Faulkner a little bit if you can do that.
That's right.
But just try not to mess anything up substitution-wise or anything like that.
Yeah, so this basketball season for you guys, I mean, it was an outstanding season for you, and maybe a little better probably than a lot of folks expected coming in. Outside of, I think it was 5 games you guys ended up losing earlier in the year where you guys were close in those games and just couldn't quite close them out. But then after a while, you guys got that stuff figured out. What kind of helped out this year for the program?
Well, I think just probably a year where we had guys the previous year had taken on some new roles that they had before. I think Jacob Shaw was a big addition to our ball club just from some stuff behind the scenes that probably a lot of people didn't see. I mean, it's all obviously on the court. He shot a high percentage from the 3-point line and the free throw line for us and those things. But I think what we were missing last year was really kind of a vocal leader to step in and kind of keep everybody together. Jacob, if you've been around Jacob very much, he's just got a real outgoing personality, and I think he was good for the guys to be around and provided some of that leadership that, that maybe we had lacked a little bit in practice. And I think, again, just some guys getting more experience in the roles. Will had been around for a long time, played a lot of minutes at that point, but some of the other guys, they were kind of new to their roles. Gavin, started since basically midway, I think, through his freshman year. Aiden got another year experience under his belt. And I think it took us, Jacob didn't come in until after we'd already gone through summer basketball. So I think that adjustment, our guys adjusting to him, and then in turn he adjusted to them, took just a little bit of time. And, we were right on the cusp of a lot of those games, like you said. We just had a little bit of trouble getting over the hump. And then as we got moving there about midseason, we got on a pretty good roll there.
Yeah, I mean, when you look across the fourth region, thus far we don't get to see the conclusion of this basketball season. Hopefully we will. But when you look across the fourth region, you guys, I think, entered the year maybe ranked in the, preseason, figured to be in the top 10. But, I mean, you guys shot up the polls pretty quickly once you put it together. And then when you're kind of looking at what you guys are going to have coming back versus the fourth region, I imagine you and Warren and all feel pretty good about things.
Yeah, we're really excited about the future. Obviously our sophomore class, a lot of them have played significant minutes the last couple of years for us. They will be juniors. And then, our juniors that are coming back have played some minutes for us as well. Mm-hmm. We've got our freshman group had a really strong season this year, and it's got a lot of size with them. So, if we can keep everybody healthy, excited about the next couple of years and what they have in store. And I think all those guys are good guys that put in a lot of work and a lot of time outside of practice in the gym. And, as they get stronger and continue to grow, it looks good. And Bowling Green will be very solid again. I think they return everybody, except for maybe one player.
Isaiah Mason, I think, was a senior.
And then, the Centrals and the Greenwoods and those guys will be reloaded. Coach McCoy did a great job with them. So, but yeah, we feel pretty good where we're at.
When you, real quick, there have been head coaching jobs that have come open through the years. You've been an assistant for a while. I think you and Warren have basically been there together the whole time. But I always ask people, or people always ask me, they're like, do you think Matt Gardner doesn't want to be a head coach? So I've got to ask, I mean, is there a job out there if it were to come open, you'd say, I think I would like to have that one? Or do you have different ambitions in this life?
I kind of go back and forth on that. If the right job came open, the right opportunity, I would definitely listen. The people at Barron have been great. This is my 15th year coaching at the high school, and I've been at Barron for 17 years. And, I enjoy what I'm doing right now, but, we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, and obviously you do real well in the classroom. You were one of their teachers of the year this year there at Barron County. Congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you.
And then I had somebody also, one of the students told me, they said, oh, he's my favorite teacher. I mean, what makes you so special to these students, you think?
You would probably have to ask them that. I think probably one of my positive characteristics is probably in the classroom is I have pretty good student rapport as far as developing relationships with them. And, the good thing for me is I spent 14 years at the middle school. So a lot of the students, this is my third year at the high school, so the students I've had in my first 3 years, a lot of them I had at the middle school, so a little bit of that was already developed and kind of moving forward. And, just you try to change things up with student with instruction and whatever works to get students more engaged. I think is what we try to do and try to make it a fun atmosphere and just kind of go from there.
Yeah, I always used to joke that when I coached like youth sports and whatnot, my main ambition was not to ruin it for them. So I feel like maybe that was you were at least successful on that level when you were at the middle school, because they like to see you when they get to high school as well.
Yeah, I started out the last 3 years. I started out the first day just apologizing for those that had to have me for a second time. But that's made the transition a little bit easier for me. And I told Coach Johnson, our assistant coach is now assistant principal. I stepped into his classroom basically when he took the assistant principal's job, and he started the AP Government Politics class. And I told him, I said, I'll do everything that I can not to mess up what you started here. So hopefully just continuing to build off that a little bit.
Yeah. I asked you about your other ambitions as well, because you like to cook a little bit, especially barbecue.
Yeah. Yes, I do. I think at some point when we get out of the coaching ranks and maybe retiring from teaching, I've talked with a couple of buddies that about the possibility of maybe doing a food truck somewhere down the road.
Yeah. How did you get into that?
Well, the cooking piece probably goes back to my assistant coach in high school, Jeff Moore, who was he actually gave my first coaching job at Glasgow.
Yeah.
When I was finishing up my student teaching there in the 2002-2003 season. And he and his wife, Nancy, when I was in college, practically raised me somewhat. They would have me over quite a bit, and he's like the master griller chef. So I just kind of soaked it all in, and then just kind of when I got out of college, just got a grill and got a smoker and just kind of played around and practiced with it. And
do you have a favorite barbecue sauce or a barbecue flavor style?
I like the the barbecue sauce I make is more of a vinegar based. I like the vinegar based.
Yeah.
With a little bit of heat to it.
Yeah. So do you have have you whipped up your own sauce?
Yes. I've got a mustard based sauce and then kind of just a regular barbecue sauce.
Yeah, you don't have to give away the secrets on air because I don't want anybody to get your food truck before you get there. But so if you were to just pick out, the one type of meat that you like to cook, do you have a specific one you really think works best with the sauces that you make?
Probably my pulled pork, the smoking of Boston butts, and those are pretty easy to do in the smoker, and they feed quite a bit. So we might have pulled pork sandwiches one night, then you can come back and maybe do barbecue nachos, and then and then sometimes we'll have cowboy beans. We'll throw the pork in the cowboy beans, make cornbread.
That all sounds really good. I'm getting a little hungry. So back to the teaching side of things. So let's see, you do the government teaching, I guess. That's kind of where your specialty is.
Yes, I teach 2 classes, AP Government and Politics, and I have 2 U.S. History classes.
Gotcha. So you're interested in that kind of thing. Then you got the barbecue cooking thing and the basketball thing. So if you take all that and kind of mix it together in a way, and you look do you kind of study the history of barbecue? Are you interested in that kind of thing?
I would say, I don't know that I study the history of it, but I'm probably more of, I guess you would call a foodie. So when my wife and my son, we take trips or going out with buddies, I'm usually the one kind of looking, all right, well, where are we going to eat? Let's try something different. And, I like to watch the cooking shows and stuff on TV and the diners, drive-ins, and dives and those kind of things, probably a little bit more so than studying a lot of history on there.
Are you gonna sign up for one of those, what is it, Bobby Flay's You Lose chef shows?
Sure, I don't know. Those people are really good. I'm probably way over my head.
Isn't he the one who had the barbecue or the best barbecue thing? I don't think he does it anymore. Was that Bobby Flay?
I think that's right.
Yeah, he'd challenge people to cook on grills and whatnot.
Yes, that's him.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I like that kind of stuff too. We bought it for Christmas. I got the best gift I've ever received. Honestly, it is a Foodie Ninja. Okay, and what it does, I can make any kind. I like to make soups, and so you can do all kinds of different things. But what I like about it is you can put your stuff in there and saute, and then you can cut up your ingredients and stick in there and turn it on for 30 minutes, and go do something else, and come back and you have a pretty nice soup. And it's amazing how well it works. But that's also cheating, I imagine. So I don't think I'd pass those chef shows. I'd get chopped immediately, really.
Yeah. Hey, whatever works.
That's right. But what as an assistant basketball coach, what is your primary role with the basketball team?
That's a good question. I think that's for me, it's kind of changed over the years a little bit, but just kind of whatever coach needs. Probably my favorite thing to do is probably to go scout ball game.
Oh yeah,
and come up with scouting reports prior to who we play. I would rather go to a game than a lot of it with the huddle now. You trade films a lot, but I'd rather be there in person than watch on film. But that's probably one of the roles. I wouldn't say I'm like the get back guy in football, but maybe one of those that you got to have the one that kind of keeps things a little light, cut up, and I'm probably the jokester of the crew.
So are you the guy who grabs Warren's jacket whenever it comes off?
No, I typically we'll probably let Brian or Kevin maybe take on that.
Handle that part, yeah.
Because I'd probably pitch it behind us in the water or something, not paying attention to what I'm doing. But yeah, Kirk's pretty good. He doesn't get on his officials as bad as he did his first few years. It's been a while since he's had technical fouls. So as far as keeping him back, it's not usually he's pretty relaxed.
Yeah, I did catch him one time this year, and I don't think this is out of turn, but an official made a call. I think it was in the district tournament. And he said, it was in the regional tournament. He said that was just wrong. I thought that was pretty funny. I mean, the official was just kind of shrugged his shoulders at him. I was like, well, that's pretty pointed, isn't it? He just told him, well, that's just wrong.
Yeah.
But
he's mellowed quite a bit in the time we've been there.
Yeah, I'd say that is absolutely true. But, of course, you guys inherited Steve Riley was kind enough to leave you guys with a rebuilding project, so I'm sure it was a little more stressful those first few years.
Yeah, it was. It was. We were kind of in survival mode there, so to speak, there for the first couple of years. We lost a few players that moved away that could have really probably helped us out during that time period. But yeah, it was it was tough grinding out wins during that time. And then you had Kobe and Dalton's group there, Clay Simmons and Matthew Bunnell and that group that kind of built things and got things kind of turned around for us. And then we went on quite a roll there for the next several years.
Yeah. Well, anything else you can think of you'd like to tell us about while you have a few minutes here?
No, I think we pretty much hit on everything.
All right. Well, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I heard you and Combs talking about books in there. Do you read any nonfiction?
Me? Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I read quite a bit. I was telling about the Messiah for the Masses, and that's Huey P. Long and the Great Depression. That's been one of my favorites through the years. But I've also read I got a couple of books about the Desert Storm that I have, and several things related to politics through the years. One of my favorites is a book called Going Negative, and it's about the use of political advertising to minimize the electorate. Thereby, if you go negative, people are tune out on the process. And so the real effect of negative political advertising is to reduce the number of people who will show up at the polls.
Yeah.
So those are a few.
Those are good. I'm reading Eric Larson's new book. Do you read any Eric Larson?
I have not. What is that one?
The one right now is The Splendid and the Vile. It's basically looking at Churchill right as he comes in as prime minister right during World War II. Mm-hmm. Looking at those early months and weeks kind of into that. I'm just kind of short into that. But he also wrote Devil in the White City, In the Garden of Beast.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's been pretty good so far.
Yeah, I mix my stuff up. I get a little short. I get a little nonfiction, and then after I get a little bit flustered reading that and going, yeah, of course that's how it works. Then I'll switch over to some fiction to kind of rot my brain a little bit.
Sounds good.
All right, Matt, I want to thank you for joining us. We'll have to do this again. You and Lee can get in here when we can actually get people in the studio again. How's that sound?
That sounds good. We would look forward to that. Appreciate you having me on today.
All right, thanks, Matt. I'll talk to you later.
All right.
We'll be right back. This Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
And we are back. with James and John. John, thanks for calling in.
Hey, wish I was there, but this is probably the second best option.
Yeah, it is the second best option. Hey, because we've had Combs in and Matt Gardner. I say call in, and we got a different variety of stuff to talk about there. Talk a little bit about basketball. With you, let's just start out with the thing that Combs and I started talking about there in the middle with Zion Harmon. We've seen that he's going to have that press conference tomorrow at Tuesday at 2, I think is what it is, and WKU's high up on his list, and you and I have discussed all year, one of the things that the Hilltoppers needed was a point guard, and that's what he looks like. I mean, what do you think the prospects are there?
Well, he can definitely play at the next level, and I think Western would be a great fit for him. But you never really know with this Odyssey what's going on. But he is, of course, I haven't seen him play in a while. Last time I saw him play was against Barron when he was at Adair County. But he's a tremendous player and tremendous talent, and at the next level he'll definitely have to be a point guard because of the size. But that'd be a great catch for Western.
Yeah, and I don't know how the end of this particular basketball season affects whether or not he decides to reclassify. Because Marshall was going to miss the state tournament anyway. They had lost in their regional final. So I don't know, how that might affect his thinking on it going forward. And I think that's going to be curious as well. Yeah,
I'm not sure either. And he's put a lot of mileage on the basketball floor. It's not just playing high school ball, but he plays pretty much year round. He made his name in the summer AAU circuit. So an extra year of high school, I don't know, is necessarily something that he has to have.
No, I'm with you there. I mean, he's and the other thing about him is he's just a natural basketball player. I mean, some people are just natural to a sport, and he looks like a guy who's just like basketball is just he just sleeps it, eats it, breathes it, whatever, and just knows it without a whole lot of real thought process. In fact, active there.
Yeah, and he tends to make people better around him, and the times that I've watched him play, he tends to make good decisions out there too, and there's a lot of hard work into getting your skills developed, but I've seen a lot of skilled players who are not necessarily good decision makers, and he seems like he has both those qualities.
Yeah. Well, here's what we're going to have to do here real quick. We're going to have to take a commercial break, and then you stick around, and we come back, and we're going to wrap up because we're going to talk a little bit about the Tom Brady situation. Apparently, I was wrong a couple of weeks ago. I just knew he was going to come back to New England.
All right, sounds good.
All right, this Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Well, John, I was surprised that Tom Brady actually left the New England Patriots, mostly because I couldn't imagine that they would just let him leave. I figured they would do whatever they could, especially Robert Kraft, maybe not Bill Belichick, but Robert Kraft, to make sure that Tom Brady stuck around. And apparently the water was too deep. They had been through too much, and Tom Brady and Bill Belichick just maybe had irreconcilable differences at this point.
I guess. I mean, because it does seem weird with 20 years playing, for the same person and the amount of success they've had, 6 Super Bowls, and I think they've, won the division, no time, I don't even know, 15, 16 times in 20 years. It does seem weird that he would leave, and the price that he signed with Tampa Bay wasn't, now this is just saying this is crazy, but 2 years, $50 million, it's for an NFL high-quality quarterback is not, that's about average, to be perfectly honest with you. And it does seem kind of odd that New England would not sign him for that. So I don't know if it's who wants to leave. I don't know if it's Brady is more interested in leaving or Belichick is more interested in moving on.
Well, I mean that's $25 million per year for him, right?
That's correct. And
which is less.
I think the average salary right now for the top level quarterbacks was over 30.
Yeah, well, and that's what I was going to say is I think that's actually less than he was more or less guaranteed to get at New England. And so that makes it seem like it was not about the money at all. It was personal.
Could be. Yeah, I mean, it's. Coach Belichick is obviously the best. I think he's the best coach probably in any sport of all time. But he does not seem to be the most easy to get along with person. And maybe Tom Brady just said, "Heck, I'll just go somewhere else and have more fun."
Yeah, I mean, he said I'll go where it's sunny. I'm over 40. That the cold's starting to hurt, and I got this supermodel wife and these children, and I'm sure they'd all much rather live in Florida at this point in time.
No state income tax and good receivers to throw to. How about that?
There you go. Hey, look, if Jameis Winston can throw 30-some-odd touchdowns to those guys, Tom Brady should be able to do it as well, you would imagine, minus the 30 interceptions.
I agree, and he won't have the interceptions and the turnovers either. Tampa won 7 games with the quarterback throwing it away 30 times and fumbling it 7.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're not far from turning 7 wins into 12 wins.
Yeah, that turns that NFC South division into the most interesting division in football, I think.
Well, I mean, you got New Orleans with another 40-year-old coach, 40-year-old quarterback, Drew Brees, and they're arguably they were the second best team behind San Francisco last year, and you still have Matt Ryan in the performing Atlanta Falcons, and you have Carolina and whatever Carolina's doing right now. But they did sign my boy Teddy Bridgewater, the Louisville grad.
Yeah, I thought, man, I was hoping Teddy would get a good gig because he actually played better than Drew Brees.
Yeah, played good. 6-0 as a starter last year, and that's a good spot for him. You got Christian McCaffrey, and the Baylor coach, Matt Rule, I think, took over there, and they got a shot to get this thing turned around.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know if you saw this, but yesterday they traded Kyle Allen as well. So I mean, their future, they flushed the future and the present, and just said, all right, let's. And so it looks like Teddy Bridgewater has an awesome opportunity there to be a starting quarterback. And as you said, I mean, as long as you got Christian McCaffrey on the field, you got somebody to get the ball to. You don't have to hold on to it all day and get knocked in the head by the defensive lineman.
No, and Teddy Bridgewater can play. I mean, he's not going to make a lot of mistakes, and he's won wherever he's been. So and he's still, I think, just 27, maybe 28 years old.
Yeah, he's upper 20s. And here's the thing about him, I think it's easy to forget that before his catastrophic leg injury there in the preseason with Minnesota, I mean, he was on track, and Minnesota was on track to have a very good season that year.
That's exactly right. And because they had a lot of pieces, and when he went down, that's when they had to reach out and get Kirk Cousins, because they did not know. In fact, his injury is so severe, they didn't know if they could even save his leg at one time.
Oh yeah, it was like an emergency situation there on the practice field that day, and there have been players who were on that team that day who, I mean, they were crying and stuff because they thought that was the end of his career, like they had seen the end of it.
That's correct.
Meanwhile, the football season is the only thing going on, more or less.
Hey, I am so happy that the NFL is doing this, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, I think it's good I think it's a good thing for people to have something to talk about or whatever, to be honest with you. And they can do a lot of this stuff remotely. I mean, you can sign contracts remotely, and you can draft players and do things. I'm glad they're doing it.
Yeah, I didn't see any. I know a lot of people talked about them shutting down and that kind of stuff, but I think the people who say that don't understand the nature of remote work these days. I mean, you can Skype in, you can teleconference in, you can sit in around, you can virtually sit around the conference table and have the discussions you need to have, and all of your documentation these days can basically be digitally signed.
Right, and I think the other knock that some people were saying is that that it maybe looks bad when people are struggling and losing jobs right now, and business are closing, that you're signing people for $50-60 million, and you're talking about that. I think that was part of the criticism, but it actually gives me hope. The NFL are pretty smart people.
Yeah. And
if they felt like that the world was coming to an end, they're probably not be offering all this money. So I think they can see maybe the light at the end of the tunnel, that things are going to bounce back, and so I'm kind of glad they did it.
Yeah, I think sometimes also people forget that these things do occur. I mean, this is a pretty significant circumstance we're in with COVID-19. But through history, these things do occur. And one of the things that happens out of it very often is the most nimble businesses and the most nimble folks are the ones who can come out the other end and still get things done. And the NFL has proven, as stodgy as it is in some ways, that it is nimble as a business.
That's exactly right. There's some pretty smart people that are involved in the business side of the NFL. I've been critical of them at times, but in terms of their business model, it's kind of hard to beat them.
Well, real quick question. So do you think the Patriots are going to make the Super Bowl next year?
Super Bowl? No. I'm not sure they'll win the division.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Josh Allen will have his day in the sun and the Bills can finally get over the Patriots. But I imagine that may not be the case.
Well, I'm thinking Miami. But anyway, I don't think either Tampa or New England will make the Super Bowl. How about that?
Yeah, I'm with you. They don't play in the regular season, unfortunately, because they need to change that schedule right now and go ahead and get them together.
They play next year.
Yeah, the next year. But, hey, Tom Brady and Bill Belichick may not be around by the time they play.
I think Bill Belichick for sure will be, but we'll see.
Yeah, you don't think his relationship with Robert Kraft is strained at this point? I mean, you think Robert Kraft's going to hold on to him, huh?
Well, I think if Robert Kraft wanted to sign Brady, he would have, and he probably chose Belichick over Brady.
That's true. Well, John, thanks for calling in. This is Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We will be back next week.
Thanks for listening, and be sure and join James and John once again next Monday at 4 for the Brown Sports Bag, a local weekly sports machine presented by McDonald's of Glasgow.
Coming soon to your FM dial, this is Fox Sports Radio, WCDS Glasgow, AM 1230.